What's going on, everybody? GMD Geek back here with a quick tutorial or how-to video on hard drive storage and maintenance, how to keep it clean, how to keep it efficient, and some of the do's and the don'ts to do along the way. With that said, let's jump right on in. Over the past couple of weeks, I've had the opportunity to help a few of my friends, gamer buddies, and everybody else with troubleshooting of their hard drives. One of them, or two of them, actually ran out of hard drive space because the partition was set too small. Another one was because they had a tremendous amount of data residing inside their download directory. And a few others were just, after 3 or 4 years of running on a system and not doing much cleanup, lagged out a little bit. One of them was because of recycle bin folder. So, with that said, I'm just going to make a quick video on what I do and some of the settings you can set up to automate and facilitate your system running a little bit smoother and a little bit cleaner. And when all that's said and done, if you still don't know where your hard drive space is or storage is going, I'm going to show you a tool called WinDirStat that'll help you hunt down and hopefully identify, remove, or move the culprit behind your problem. All right, so that said, the first thing we're do is I'm going to transition over here to a primary desktop. I'm going to show you my computer. Now, I do run on my streaming system. I am very specific on this one. I have old school mentality, not really old school. It's just I have a couple hard drives on here. Okay, my primary drive is a 250 gig solid state drive. I have a 2 terabyte solid state drive, a 500 gig solid state drive for gaming, and then I have a backup drive on the network. That being said, what I am doing is my OS drive is what we're going to specifically focus on, which is a 250 gig drive. All right, you'll notice I have 77 roughly gigs free out of that 250 gig drive after it's been formatted and everything. I do not do anything other than the OS system and a handful of installed applications to the OS drive. My games that I play go installed to the F drive. Other applications I have started installing to the E drive. The only thing I want on my OS drive is my operating system and the files that are associated with it. Nothing else. And that's it. Now, general rule of thumb, Microsoft, I believe, recommends around 100 gigs of hard drive space for your operating system to operate and everything. I believe mine runs around 106. I like to, as a rule of thumb, double that at the minimum. So you'll see that I'm running a 250 gig drive. Back in the days when I had a 286 and a 386, it was I think we had an 80 meg or 88 megabyte hard drive. Things were a lot smaller. Things will change. I'm sure 5 years from now, I'll probably need a 200 gig or 400 gig hard drive just for the operating system. That said, though, we're only focusing on the here and now. All right, so I double the recommended storage space. So if you have a 1 terabyte hard drive and you want to partition it up, please do not go any smaller than, I would say, 250 gigs for your operating system drive. And I wouldn't go any smaller than 500 gigs if you install everything to your OS drive. If you're a gamer and you have a second drive or a second partition, my recommendation is installing your games to the second partition as long as it's a solid state drive. We can go from there. So let's go ahead and talk about the quick and down and dirty things. The first thing we're going to talk about is the downloads directory. I keep mine fairly clean. Usually if it's older than 30 days, it's not going to be found in here. I'll move it off and copy it to my external hard drive, or I'll delete it. Applications specifically, if you download an application today, in 30 days or 45 days from now, they are probably going to have made an update to it because vulnerabilities are usually found. So you need to make sure that you rotate those out. If it's one that you have bad internet and it's a bigger file, go ahead and copy it off, because sometimes doing an update after an install is a lot more efficient and time effective. But I typically don't keep stuff on here for that long. I do some testing software and I put a few things in here just for show, but that's about it. One of the people that I helped troubleshoot, sorry, he's going to know exactly who it is when I tell him. He had a 1 terabyte hard drive, didn't do anything to it. just let it run as a single partition, and he couldn't figure out why he ran out of hard drive space. When we went to look, he had 383 gigs. 383 gigs. Yes, that's what I said. Of download software and applications and whatnot. He's a software developer. Did a lot of testing, and over the course of about a year and a half, accumulated almost 400 gigs of software stuff and downloads. When we went through all that, several of them were duplicates. Some were newer versions of the previous version and all this other stuff. And for a developer, sometimes that is required. But in his case, it's like, well, I just downloaded the new one and went from there. He never cleaned up his downloads directory. Clean up your downloads directory, people. It's going to save you a lot of hard drive space. The next thing that you're going to want to be mindful of is your recycle bin. Now, I put a bunch of stuff in mine today so you could see what I'm talking about, but a lot of people don't understand just because you delete a file doesn't mean that it's gone. Windows understands that sometimes people hit that delete key on accident and send something in the recycle bin, and you want to bring it back either by hitting the Control Z to undo it or actually go into the recycle bin and pull it out. But also, they forget that just because you put it in the recycle bin doesn't mean that it's gone and you've freed up that hard drive space. So if you look here, I put a whole bunch of older video stuff in here, just copied ones over and deleted some image files and everything. And these ones are about 400. How big is this one? Let's see. Properties. Yeah, about 350 megs. So you're looking, between the couple of these three, couple gigs worth of files in the recycle bin. That can easily ramp up. I've seen recycle bins on another person's box, her box. I went over and helped them on their PC, troubleshooted it remotely. It's a family PC, and they did a lot of schoolwork over a course of a couple of years, did a lot of deletes, never emptied out the recycle bin, and they had about 200 gigs of files and homework assignments and everything else that resided there. And a simple little thing that you can do freed up all that space. All you do is you go to your desktop where your recycle bin is, right click on that bad boy, and empty it. It's all you have to do. 37 items this time. Click, boom, and that fast. It's gone. I have freed up that hard drive space without doing much of an issue at all. So those are the first two things. Download directly. Be mindful of what you keep in there. Clean it out. If you don't need it, get rid of it. If you want to keep it, move it off to a storage drive or to a second drive. Today's storage day is not that expensive anymore. I just recommend either getting an external. The one I picked up last week from Costco for $119 is an 8 terabyte external hard drive. I have several different things in here, but this one seems to work really, really well for pictures, photos, and some backup stuff is what we're going to use it for. But it's affordable. You can go out and get those things. All right, so we talked about downloads and we talked about the recycle bin. Make sure you empty your recycle bin. If you want to delete the file and you know that you're deleting the file on purpose and you have no need to use it ever again, hold down the Shift Delete, and that will permanently delete it. It'll bypass the recycle bin. You don't have to worry about it. But get in a habit of going in and checking your recycle bin and cleaning that out. That said, those are the first two things, the first two storage locations. We're going to go ahead and close this, and now we're going to go and down to the bottom here. We're going to type in search or whatnot, and you're going to type in disk cleanup. Built-in tool to Windows. It's a fantastic little thing. It's going to say disk cleanup drive selection. Choose your C drive. Most people out there will have C drive as their OS drive. There's a very few set of people out there, and you know who I'm talking about, that are probably not watching this video because they know how to do this stuff. They'll change their OS drive to something else. Most of us, C drive. Click OK. It's going to do a little thing. It's going to bring it up. Now, this is not done. It's not done doing its calculations. There's a couple different things and a couple different mechanics for how this works from Microsoft. So from here, you click on downloaded programs, your temporary internet files, your shader cache stuff. These are all things. I do not let it manage downloads. I do downloads myself because sometimes there's stuff I do download. I want to keep it for a couple of days, make sure that I've got it working correctly, and then I might go delete it. Or if it's something I need to save, I'll save it off somewhere. But I keep care of manually taking care of my downloads directory. Everything else, I let the system clean up. So there's two things that'll happen. If you click OK, it's going to go purge all this stuff, right? Not a problem. But if you're not done and you want to clean up the system files as well as just these basic temp directory stuff and everything, click on Clean Up System. Okay? It's going to ask for the C drive again. You say yes, okay. Going to do some calculating. That's it indexing, doing a quick summary of these certain areas. And now you're going to notice the files have changed. It doesn't say what it said before. So you want to get rid of you want to clean up the Windows update? Yes. Do I want to get rid of Defender antivirus update stuff that might be residual that I don't need? Yeah, you can if you want. It's only 15 megs. You can put everything you want. Downloaded programs, files, these updates, temporary stuff. I let it clean all this stuff out. Again, I don't let it care for downloads. Then you can click on OK. All right. And that's going to say you do want to delete these files. But I'm not done yet. Now, if I want to run this all over again and do it again, then sure. But you'll now notice we have a second tab. Okay, so right here, if you click on more options for second tab, down here is where it says System Restore and Shadow Copies. Your system, being its wonderful intelligent self, so you can do recovery or auto recovery, makes backups on a regular basis. And it has more than one or two of them. So what you come into here is I tell it clean up. And what this is going to do is going to say, hey, get rid of all the copies except for the last good backup. I don't care about anything else. I just want this last one. There's no reason for me to hold on to it. Let's go ahead and punt the rest of that stuff to the curb. So I'm going to say delete that, and it's going to take care of it. Now, if I'm back in here, everything I've selected before and from previous, now I can click on OK. And look, it's going to ask me, are you sure you want to permanently delete these files? I'm going to say, yeah. I don't need them. They're just temp stuff. They're update files, they're residual files. There's things that are left over that I really don't need anymore, nor does the system. It just holds it because. Is it efficient? Not really, not so much. But Windows is aware of it. So they did come up with something called storage sense. Now we're going to talk about how you can go in and update and automate some of this stuff yourself. So you come to the Windows button, you click on that wonderful universal gear setting that everyone adopted years ago that represents settings. Click on it, open up Windows settings. You're going to go click on System, and then come and click on Storage. Okay, so you see right here on the top, it says Storage Sense. Okay, and there's also a list of your local hard drive here, and you can expand to show all the categories. It's going to show you an inventory of your drive and give you a rough idea of what is using what for storage. In this case here, system and reserve space, like I said before, I thought it was around 100 gigs, is 106 gigs reserved for my operating system. So if you have a partition and you set it down to say 135 gigs, that gives you roughly 30 gigs of free space for swapping or anything else. But then if you look and add in apps that you've installed on top of it, antivirus programs, some editor software, some basic stuff that you're going to have residual to your system inside that OS that's required, you're going to start running out of space really, really fast, especially if you have temp files from your browsers and everything else. You're going to run out of space fast. So that's my rule of thumb. You want to double at least what your usage is. In this case, it's at say 106. I would want no less than 212 gigs of hard drive space to accommodate what I'm going to be trying to do and maintain decent performance or better on my OS drive. In this case, I have a 250 gig drive. And after you format it and uses all of its settings and everything, that's actually a 237 gig space drive. We could go on that different video. And then you've got all this other stuff that accumulates throughout the days. Like if you're doing video editing or anything else, and it's caching and temp files and all this. Yeah. Long story short, make sure you double whatever the requirement is. Okay. Now we're going to actually go back and talk about storage sense. This is some place where you can go to help automate some of your functionality. And if it's not on, turn that sucker on. Just my word of advice. Click on Configure Storage Sense and run it now. Okay, by default, I think it defaults to every day. I have mine set to every week. What this does is then it's going to go out there, it's going to run automatically, or if you start running low on disk space, it'll kick that off as well. It runs every week and it cleans up unneeded files, update files, and everything else. Does this stuff in the background. And you can also come in and you can tell it, you can check mark it and say, delete temporary files that my apps aren't using and delete files in my recycle bin. Note, recycle bin, if they have been there for over 14 days. All right. So this again, as I was telling you, my one friend, they had like 200 gigs worth of stuff in their recycle bin because they never realized it was there, and they needed to empty it. So as that result, yeah, but sometimes you're going to delete stuff and you want to be able to get it back. So I set mine to 14 days instead of 1 day. Typically, if I'm going to delete something, I'm permanently delete it, but you never know. Somebody else could get on the PC. No one but me gets to use this one. Um, but I set mine to 14. And then I again set it to never delete download files. I'll do that myself. But again, as we were talking about earlier, the use case was out there that my one friend, 383 gigs worth of hard storage downloads into his downloads directory that he never cleaned up. It's those two big ones. Microsoft knows that those are there, and so they've gone out and modified it so you can automate maintenance on those two locations to help keep those things down. So you know that it is an issue, a reoccurring issue across the board. So you go in, you click on those, call it good, and you can even tell it to run it manually now and clean that all up. Okay, problem solved there. Okay, and it's going to tell you, like in my case, over the past month, because I try to keep my stuff fairly clean. It's only found like 4.5 gigs worth of stuff that is cleaned up over the past month. So the last 29 days. Oh, it's a leap year. Okay, over the last 29 days, it's managed that much. That's fantastic. Okay, I'm good with that. Now, so what we've done is we've cleaned up the temporary files, we cleaned up the internet stuff. Make sure in your browsers you're going out and you're clearing your history and all that stuff on a regular basis, because I have seen some cookies and some cache folders on your internet browsers that have grown to several gigs, so you can delete those, clear those on a regular basis. Just good common practice. Now, after all that's said and done, if you still can't figure out where all your hard drive stuff is going, there is one program you can call that I told you about. It's free, called WinDirStat. And I'll put a link to it in the description below so you can go download it. It is free to use. Okay, it's going to inventory the drive or drives that you tell it to. All I want it to do is my C drive in this case. And it's going to take a few minutes. What it's going to do is it's going to run a search and index and identify everything that's on your hard drive that you specified. Now, the difference between this and Windows Explorer or File Explorer is this will give you a hard drive or how big the file is or how big the directory is. So it makes it a lot easier to go hunting to see what the culprit is that's taking up the bulk of your hard drive space. So in this case, so far, as it's still chunking through, you can see that the majority of my storage space is going to the Windows system. All right. But a lot of times the culprits that we find are not just Windows and files that are used for everyday usage. So in Windows, I've got 76 gigs so far. In the files that are associated, I've got 30 gigs. But you can also see, well, users, that's 20 gigs. That's a chunk of data. And you can see from the files installs how much file stuff has been installed locally to the C drive. And if you need to change that or anything else, that's what you're going to do. And then when it's done loading, you're going to get a legend over here on the right that's going to show you a breakdown by file types: audio, visual, audio, video, MP4, MKV. It breaks those down even further, not just by the video file, but the video file type or the audio file type or the storage file type. Is it a PDF? Is it a doc? Whatever this other stuff is. That color codes it so you get a good idea. So you can start searching through here. And in this case, I'm going to click on users because this is where most of the time you're going to find your stuff. You're going to see GMD Geek on this drive has 18 gigs of data. What is that 18 gigs of data? What do I have out here that's consisting of 18 gigs of data? Okay, half of that, better than half of that, is coming from app data. Temp files running while I'm programs are running. So my system, like OBS, actually runs off this OS, the C drive. So this video that I'm recording is generating roughly a gig file. That's all running in the background and taking it there. My desktop, I have 2 gigs worth of stuff on the desktop. Why do I have 2 gigs worth of stuff on my desktop? What is up there? So I have an Adobe file somewhere that's that big, and then I have some other stuff. So I have to go in and clean all that stuff. Long story short, if you can't find, after doing the cleanup stuff and the move and the temps and everything else, you can't understand what's still eating your storage, run this application, go start hunting for it, find it, and either move it off or delete it, and you're good to go. You can delete files directly from in here if you want by right-clicking. And let's see, well, let's just pick one. Photoshop, files. Lightroom. So the PDF, I can right click on it and I can delete it. And right here, I can either send it to the recycle bin or I can just bypass the recycle bin and permanently delete it. Now, I've already cleaned up my drive. I'm pretty okay with everything that's on there. But if you find something, that's what you can do. And remember, if you bypass the recycle bin, it's gone forever. All right, everybody. I don't want this video to get too long. So if you have questions or comments or anything like that, please hit me up in the comments section below or go on over to our GMD Geek Gamer Discord. We have a section down there for troubleshooting stuff like this. I'll be more than happy to respond there as well. I hope everyone has a great day and enjoys the beautiful weekend weather that we're like having here in Texas. But enjoy your time online and make lots of good friends. Until the next time, I'm out of here.